Welcome back everyone. As most of you know, the iPhone 13 Pro Max is an iPhone Apple just released, and what I can tell you is after owning it for a month now, there are a lot of highs and there are very little lows with this specific phone. And there's one reason why I personally won't be using this specific device, and it's actually the size. Everything else about this iPhone is pretty much perfect. It is that perfect iPhone. If any of you actually wanted to go and pick a perfect iPhone up, this is the one to pick up. There are a lot of highs, there are very few lows about this specific device, and that's kind of how it sums up this whole entire thing. It is $1,099 to pick up, so it's definitely not a cheap phone, but compared to devices like the Galaxy S21 Ultra, I guess the Note 20 Ultra not too long ago, and even a phone like a OnePlus 9 Pro, this is a solid device, and I think it actually has a lot of capability for the price tag. Now, I also do think that, I usually don't say this every year of owning an iPhone, I actually do think going from a 12 Pro Max to a 13 Pro Max is a pretty decent update. Now, I still think if you own a 12 Pro Max, keep it, but if you have the money and you're okay and you want to go and, spend the money to a 13 Pro Max, I do think it's actually a worthwhile upgrade. So starting off with the body, we already know, I don't want to bore you guys, but the panel of this thing is beautiful. A 6.7-inch Super Retina Extra OLED panel and 120 Hz. That is the key of ProMotion on this specific phone, and that really does change everything. With it having that 120 Hz, this will pretty much be the starting point of phones before ProMotion and phones that pretty much have ProMotion. So that is a big deal in my opinion. I'm glad this phone had it. I'm super happy about it, and I cannot wait for the next generation of iPhones because they're only hopefully going to get perfect from here. I've also compared this iPhone to dozens of phones by now, I believe, and I've compared all the panels, speed, performance, all that stuff, and this is a very good display on this phone, and it is actually looking much better than the predecessors, which is really good. Now on the back, we do actually have a frosted glass back, which is perfect, that camera setup, which we'll get into in a second, and the one thing I want to let you know is that this phone feels like a $1 billion phone. This thing does not feel cheap. There are some phones that come and go that don't really feel as premium as you may think. This is not one of those phones. This device feels like a $1,000 phone, and it by far is one of my favorite things about this device too. In fact, the 11 Pro Max also feels still like a very expensive phone as well. So you can't really go wrong with either one of these, but the 13 Pro Max is a very good phone for sure in the build quality. Now camera wise, I will tell you it's a really good camera, triple camera setup, 3 12 megapixel lenses, a wide telephoto and ultra wide sensor, and you also have a 12 megapixel front facing camera. Both the front and the back has the capability of shooting 4K at 60, so that is a really cool thing and I love seeing that type of stuff. But a big thing to keep in mind too with these specific sensors is that the predecessor pretty much could do the same thing, and even the predecessor could pretty much do the same thing too. We do have ProRes video with these specific phones, but I will tell you, I don't think everyone's going to be using that. Even me, somebody who makes a ton of videos, I don't plan on using it either, so you're pretty much in the minority in that specific sense. But another big thing to keep in mind, from me comparing the 13 Pro Max to the 12 Pro Max and the 13 Pro Max to the 11 Pro Max, I couldn't really see too many differences, even I already filmed so many camera comparisons with these things, and even then I couldn't, you could tell some differences, but for someone like me who doesn't really use their phone as their primary camera, I use it just basically for Snapchats and TikToks and Instagram videos and stuff like that, this is perfectly fine, but also my iPhone 10 is perfectly fine too. So I think Apple kind of overhypes it up and makes you think that this is the greatest camera of all time, and it probably is the best iPhone camera, but if this camera was a 10 out of 10, like the iPhone 12 Pro Max is like a 9.9 out of 10. All it's missing is cinematic mode, to be honest, and if that's not a big deal to you, then I think this iPhone is a really small upgrade in the camera department for sure. So I don't want to spend 50 minutes talking about the camera, but this is the best iPhone camera of all time, but the last generation is also really, really good, and even the generation before that is still really, really good too. So in terms of the camera setup, that covers it up here. Now one thing about the software is pretty much still running iOS 15, which is beautiful. It's getting better over time, so I don't want to hit on the instability of the software, but I will tell you Apple has pushed out a couple of updates through the last month, and it's actually gotten a little bit more stable, which is good. I am not too sure if it affected the battery life at all, but it has gotten more stable over time for all the iPhone 13s, which is great. This thing is also going to be supported for many, many years, so you can get this thing today, you can get it tomorrow, you can get it next year or a couple years later, and this thing's probably still going to get software support support, which is a really cool thing. Now I want to move over and talk about the performance real quick, but I do want to tell you, after comparing this iPhone to all the other iPhones, this is a faster iPhone than all the other ones. It's pretty much on par with phones like the Galaxy S21 Ultra, and even like with the Pixel 6 Pro, I guess they're about the same, who cares at this point. These are all really fast performing phones, and I just honestly don't think you're going to see that big of a difference from a performance jump if you're just heavily focused on the performance segment, right? If you're planning on playing like super intensive games and doing a bunch of video editing on your phone and all that stuff, then by all means, this is going to be the fastest iPhone for you. That Apple A15 Bionic chip inside of it is beautiful, and that 6 gigs of RAM on this machine with, iOS optimizations, this is going to be a very good performing iPhone. And after I compared it to all my other iPhones that we own, this was the fastest iPhone of all time, I'm pretty sure, this and the 13 Pro. It's the smoothest iPhone as well. So one thing I want to tell you is, I don't even think the performance is worth the money. There's other areas of this, phone that are worth the money. The performance is almost the same as the 12 Pro Max. And to be honest, there were some times where my 11 Pro Max was actually faster in beating my iPhone 13 Pro Max. I think there was like one app or two apps here and there, which is totally okay. The 13 Pro Max is still faster, but it's pretty interesting to see the similarity between the two. I mean, that phone came out in 2019, 2 years ago, and I don't even think it should be close to the 13 Pro Max, considering it's the newest iPhone. But a big thing to keep in mind is that ProMotion is one of the biggest differentiating factors in terms of just the everyday using of this phone. But on top of that, with the actual display itself, it makes the thing feel much smoother and much faster. So like I mentioned, that is one of the bigger things about this device. By you actually going ahead and picking up a phone like this that has ProMotion, you are pretty much securing yourself into having a phone that's way smoother than all the other iPhones that came out before it. Now that doesn't mean it's necessarily the fastest phone in the world and all that stuff, but ProMotion does add a lot of capability in my opinion, and it does make this phone feel that much smoother for sure. So in terms of performance, that pretty much covers it up here. Now probably one of the best aspects besides ProMotion of this phone is probably, the battery life. This iPhone has a 4,300 mAh battery inside of it, and that is a great battery life to have on a phone like this. Like I mentioned before, you can pick up this phone today and the battery life will probably be one of the longest lasting battery lives of any device of all time. And like I mentioned, that is the biggest and best thing about this phone. Now it doesn't mean it's perfect. I mean, there's still phones like the Pixel 5 and the Galaxy S20 that actually had pretty good battery life too compared to this device. But for an iPhone, in my opinion, and for my battery test that I did, this is the best performing iPhone battery of all time, and I'm very, very happy about it for sure. So the iPhone 13 Pro Max, 1 month later, how does it hold up right now? Well, this is what I'll pretty much tell you. I think this phone has aged very graciously. I think for a month, it's actually gotten a lot of updates. It's gotten some revisions in my own head of how this phone fits into the whole entire Apple ecosystem. And I do think it's worth the money. At $1099, it's a pretty good phone. But like I mentioned before, if you have an iPhone 12 Pro Max or an 11 Pro Max, there isn't really a big reason to go and upgrade to this specific phone if you are like loving your device and if you don't have any problems with it. But on the flip side, if you are planning on updating your phone and you want a device that's going to be able to last you for several more years and you don't want to feel like you have an old phone every single year, I truly do think this is one of those iPhones you can go and upgrade to and be totally content for many, many more years to come. The 12 Pro Max, I didn't really get that vibe. The 11 Pro Max was the one phone that I felt the same way about, and I think I was right. It was a tremendous phone. The 12 Pro Max I wasn't a huge fan about it, to be honest. The 13 Pro Max, with its ProMotion, with its best battery life ever, I guess performance increase, which isn't even that big of a deal, and the camera increase, which isn't that big of a deal to me, I think it adds a little bit more character to the phone. But I think if you have an upgrade and you're planning on doing it anyway, you have my, I guess, cosign. But if you're totally okay with your phone, there's not a huge reason to upgrade to this, in my opinion. If you want to save some money, you can get the 13 Pro for a smaller size, but this is a solid phone in my opinion, and I'd recommend you guys to get it if you want. If you guys have any other questions or anything like that, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly, everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.